Tom Hanks has spent decades building one of Hollywood's most respected careers. But now his political comments may be creating a problem he can't simply act his way out of. After becoming increasingly outspoken about politics, Hanks is now facing growing criticism from audiences, while his relationship with a major Hollywood studio has reportedly taken a serious turn. And if the latest claims surrounding his canceled project are accurate, this could become one of the biggest career setbacks he's faced in years. But there's an even bigger question. Is Hollywood finally starting to rethink how heavily its biggest stars should involve themselves in politics? We're breaking down what happened, what Hanks reportedly said, and why the backlash is now reaching far beyond social media. There's no question that Hollywood and politics have become increasingly intertwined, especially as the 2026 midterm elections get closer. Actors, directors, writers, producers, comedians, and other major entertainment figures have been appearing at political events, speaking publicly about elections, and using their platforms to push political messages. And while celebrities have always been politically active, the intensity of that involvement has become much harder to ignore. Names like Robert De Niro, George Clooney, and now Tom Hanks have all become increasingly associated with political commentary. But for Hanks, the situation is particularly interesting because his public political involvement appears to have grown substantially over the past several months, and that has created a very different relationship between the actor and a portion of his audience. For decades, Tom Hanks was one of those Hollywood stars who seemed almost universally recognizable and broadly respected. But increasingly, political statements can change the way audiences look at a celebrity, especially when fans feel that an actor is spending more time talking about politics than entertaining them. That appears to be part of the reason why Hanks has faced growing criticism over the past year or so. And now, according to the claims surrounding his canceled project, that controversy has reportedly spilled over into his professional career. The project in question was reportedly a political thriller being developed at Paramount Pictures, with Hanks attached to play a corrupt vice president. But the project was eventually scrapped, and Hanks was reportedly removed from the production before the movie was abandoned altogether. Now, whether political pressure actually played a role in that decision is a much bigger question, and it's important not to automatically treat speculation as established fact. Still, the timing has created plenty of discussion, because when an actor becomes increasingly political while simultaneously facing a decline in public enthusiasm, people naturally start asking whether the two things are connected, and that's where Hanks' latest comments become particularly interesting. At a recent political rally, Hanks reportedly spoke about the current state of America and the entertainment industry, arguing that the country has become deeply divided. He blamed much of that division on Donald Trump and his supporters, claiming that Hollywood figures have increasingly been portrayed as villains by people on the other side of the political divide. Hanks also argued that actors are dealing with serious difficulties because of the current political climate. He suggested that opportunities for performers have been affected and expressed frustration toward Americans whom he believes aren't sufficiently informed about what's happening in the country. That is where his comments become especially controversial, because criticizing a political administration is one thing, but telling ordinary Americans that they're ignorant, uninformed, or responsible for destroying someone's livelihood is going to provoke a very different reaction, particularly when those same people are part of the audience that ultimately buys movie tickets and supports Hollywood productions. Hanks reportedly went even further, arguing that the current political environment has damaged cinema itself, along with filmmakers and the movie-going experience. He acknowledged that there are still successful filmmakers working in the industry, pointing toward people such as Christopher Nolan, but claimed that many other actors and filmmakers are struggling because of the current administration. He also criticized several policies and political decisions, including immigration enforcement and the administration's involvement with major public events. And eventually, he returned to the issue that seems to be at the center of this entire controversy: the difficulty of getting politically themed entertainment projects made in the current environment. According to Hanks' argument, Hollywood creators now have to question whether politically focused projects can even move forward because of the political climate surrounding the industry. But that's where the criticism of his argument begins. Because the idea that the Trump administration is directly responsible for every canceled Hollywood project or every struggling actor is an extremely broad claim. A studio can cancel a movie for countless reasons: budget concerns, marketability, scheduling, audience demand, script problems, financing, distribution strategy, creative disagreements, and sometimes a project simply doesn't make financial sense anymore. Unless there is clear evidence connecting a specific government decision to a specific cancellation, it's difficult to establish that politics alone caused a project to disappear. And that's why critics are looking at the Paramount situation differently. Rather than assuming that Washington somehow shut down Hanks' movie, they argue that this could simply have been a studio decision. Paramount is ultimately responsible for deciding which projects it wants to finance and which actors it wants attached to those projects. And if studios believe a particular celebrity's increasingly divisive public image could hurt a project's commercial potential, that's a business consideration they are allowed to make. That doesn't necessarily mean Hanks was blacklisted. It doesn't mean his career is over. And it certainly doesn't prove that politics were the reason the project was canceled, but it does raise an interesting question about where Hollywood draws the line when it comes to celebrity activism. Because audiences are not required to agree with an actor simply because they enjoyed that actor's movies. And studios aren't required to ignore public perception simply because someone is a famous name. That's becoming increasingly important as more celebrities enter political debates. When a star repeatedly tells audiences what they should believe, how they should vote, or what they should think about the country, some fans may appreciate that activism. Others may simply stop listening. And that's the risk. You're not just speaking to fellow celebrities anymore. You're speaking directly to the audience that funds your movies. We've already seen similar situations involving other major Hollywood names, including Robert De Niro and George Clooney, both of whom have faced significant online criticism over their political statements. And now, Hanks appears to be entering that same territory. The problem isn't necessarily that celebrities have political opinions. They're entitled to those opinions just like everyone else. The bigger issue is whether constantly bringing politics into entertainment starts pushing away the very audience those entertainers depend upon. And that's why this latest situation involving Tom Hanks deserves attention. Because if audiences continue becoming frustrated with celebrity political activism, studios may eventually have to think more carefully about which stars they attach to expensive productions. A famous name doesn't automatically guarantee success, and political fame doesn't necessarily translate into box office appeal. Hanks also reportedly argued that today's Hollywood is being restricted in ways that weren't happening when he first entered the industry decades ago. He contrasted the current environment with his early career in the 1980s, arguing that filmmakers once had more freedom to explore political ideas without the same level of conflict surrounding them. But once again, there's a major distinction between political disagreement and actual censorship. A studio deciding that it doesn't want to make a particular movie isn't automatically government censorship. An audience rejecting a politically charged project isn't censorship either. And a celebrity facing criticism for political comments isn't necessarily being silenced. Sometimes it's simply the result of a marketplace where audiences get to decide what they want to watch. That's ultimately the uncomfortable reality that Hollywood has to deal with. And perhaps that's why this entire situation feels bigger than just Tom Hanks. We're now watching another wave of Hollywood celebrities become increasingly vocal ahead of the 2026 midterms. And if that trend continues, the divide between Hollywood and parts of its audience could become even wider. The same celebrities who believe they're using their platforms to influence political conversations may discover that their audiences don't necessarily want politics attached to every movie, interview, or public appearance. And Hanks may be learning that lesson right now. The most interesting part is that this isn't simply about one canceled movie. It's about public trust. When longtime fans begin feeling disconnected from a celebrity, that relationship can be surprisingly difficult to repair. People may still love the classic movies. They may still appreciate performances from decades ago. But that doesn't mean they'll automatically support every new project or every political statement. And if Hanks continues becoming more politically outspoken while audiences continue pushing back, the question becomes whether this is simply a temporary controversy or the beginning of a much bigger shift in how the public views one of Hollywood's most recognizable stars. So what do you think? Should Hollywood celebrities keep their political opinions separate from their entertainment careers, or should they use their platforms to speak out whenever they believe something is important? And do you think the controversy surrounding Tom Hanks is actually affecting his career, or is this simply another temporary social media storm? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the WokeWatch for more Hollywood and entertainment updates. I'll see you in the next one.